Mom, stop! None of this means I love Sam any less. With those words, spoken over the phone to her mother as she walked through the front door of the house, Sam's fiancée brought him to a point that he had been thinking about for years as a general concept, but only in the last 2 weeks as a specific problem. Mother, enough! I told you this because I've always been honest with you, but I'm not asking for your opinion or approval. Besides, I know you and Aunt Sally did the same thing to Dad and Uncle Rob. Interesting, Sam thought as his fiancée Cindy continued to chat with her mother, still not noticing his presence. It turns out that certain morals reigned in his bride's family. He had never noticed such insight in himself before, but now, looking back, it should have been obvious. What? How did you know? Very simple. When you and Aunt Sally start drinking, you get chatty, and boy, do you talk about interesting things sometimes. So all three of us have known about this for many years. There was a pause, and Sam assumed it was her mother speaking again. Now Cindy's tone became calm and reasonable. So, you understand perfectly well what I feel? Yes, it's the same with me. I just need to experience it for myself, get it out of my head, and then I'll be ready for the wedding. After this, I will be the nicest girl in the world, she told her mother. Sam looked down at the college yearbook he held in his lap. In the photo in the middle of the page, Cindy made a face and stuck out her tongue while being photographed on camera. This was one of his favorite photographs. It showed her cheerful, slightly hooligan mood. But looking at this photo, Sam was most reminded of Cindy's acne. She had a bad case of cystic acne in her final year of school, the first year they started dating. Indeed, these were very unpleasant, swollen nodes that spoiled the impression of Cindy's appearance. The yearbook people, of course, retouched her photo to get rid of them, but they missed one pimple just under the wing of her nose, near her left nostril. Due to the lighting and shooting angle, this pimple looked like just a shadow in the album. But he remembered it well, because at that time, he constantly told her how beautiful and sexy she was, even despite the pimple, and insisted that she leave the sore alone and stop squeezing it, trying to squeeze it out, otherwise it would be under her nose there will be a scar. Of course, she didn't listen to Sam, and naturally, Cindy ended up with a scar. It was a small scar, and you had to look really hard to see it, but it was there. Cindy never seemed to notice it herself, but it was an important defining reference point for Sam, as he tried to figure out which identical triplet sister he was talking to. Why would Sam even think about having to differentiate between stunningly beautiful, blonde, hot so hot your ice cream melts from 15 meters triplets, other than just to see if it was possible? It's simple. Paranoia. Of course, as the saying goes, even a paranoid person can have real enemies. And Sam had something worse enemies. He had 3 older brothers. They did not go so far as to subject the younger one to beatings or physical violence. No, they acted more subtly. They staged a total psychological siege on Sam. As a child, when his parents were not around, almost every prank involving his brothers ended in a trap for him, a mocking joke or a disgusting prank that infuriated him, but amused the hell out of them. And these were people who loved him in their own way and beat to a pulp anyone who tried to bully Sam outside the family circle. He learned the hard way that a delicious chocolate cake, offered with a smile, can be flavored inside with an incredibly hot sauce for the fastest possible colon cleanse. Or add someone's disgustingly snotty booger to a raisin bun. As a result, Sam quickly learned the value of caution and the need to look any gift horse in the mouth. Or, as in the case of his bride, under the wing of his nose, on his left side. However, all of this faded into the background when Sam first met Cindy in the first week of senior year. He had seen her before, but he had his own friends, and she had hers, so they never crossed paths or communicated. But during their senior year, they had an English class together, and they found themselves sitting next to each other in a group of 8 other students, plus their professor, so it was only natural that Sam and Cindy would finally get to know each other. College was a revelation to him even before he met Cindy. In high school, he never went on dates with girls. He was a serious student, and the complex dating policy reminded him too much of his explosive interactions with his brothers. so he never felt relaxed enough to spend time on it. Things turned out differently in college. There, he dealt with girls whose sexuality had already been discovered. Those he dated were usually quite open about their desires. If they wanted to have sex with someone other than Sam, they simply told him so and quickly ended the relationship. Just like that. Sweet and straightforward. No hidden agendas. And there were always more girls than guys, so the choice remained wide. At that time, Sam began to trust again, at least a little. Maybe the rest of the world wasn't really like its treacherous brothers. Things started out slow with Cindy, but the relationship quickly escalated. She was a complete pillow princess, so she remained not very active during sex, willingly allowing him to do whatever he wanted with her whenever he wanted, within certain limits, of course, and always appreciated his efforts. By Thanksgiving, things had gotten so serious that she dragged him home to meet her parents. Then he met Cindy's sisters. He hadn't seen them before because their father had insisted that they all go to different colleges, with the goal, as he said, of scattering the nuggets into different baskets. From what Sam now knew, he wondered if their father was trying to limit the triplets' opportunities to play with boyfriends. Sam, of course, knew that Cindy had sisters, but did not suspect that they would be the same age and, moreover, that all three were twins. When he asked her about her sisters, she always became a little mysterious and quietly changed the subject. Perhaps the shock of seeing them all together for the first time was some kind of family fitness test. That Thanksgiving, he realized that what he had previously thought was a whole bunch of shameless, self-absorbed selfies hanging on the wall of her apartment might actually have been a vinaigrette of photos of both of her sisters. Then again, she was 20-something years old, so it might as well have been her own selfies. It was impossible to accurately determine this, given the not very clear resolution of the photographs. When Sam met the other two girls in the family, he surprised them by not freaking out that the triplets were like a dynasty of circus performers, as apparently many of the other guys they dated had done. The reason for this was simple. In elementary school, Sam's best friend also had identical twin sisters. So this was a familiar situation for him, although during his school days he had not yet reached puberty, so it never occurred to him to have sex with them. What was important, however, was that he learned to tell his friends' sisters apart, so doing the same with the triplets was relatively easy, although he never showed that he had strategies for cracking the code of sameness. For some reason, such an admission did not seem prudent to him. From the example of his own oppressive brothers, Sam had long ago learned that he would be much more likely to take revenge, if necessary, if he appeared more naive than he actually was. What almost threw Sam off balance, although he managed to hide it, was meeting their Aunt Sally and realizing that she and the girl's mother were also identical twin sisters. What were the odds? Absolutely identical twin sisters, one of whom has identical triplets. This should have made the news. However, the surprising thing was that Aunt Sally's children were completely different from each other. Then this fact seemed a little strange to Sam, but he did not dwell on it. Now it seemed even more frightening and suspicious. As Sam got a little more comfortable with his potential bride's family, it became easier for him to distinguish between the three girls. Abigail, being only a few minutes older than the rest of the sisters, was the least physically active of the three, so her face was only slightly fuller than the other two. When the sisters began menstruating and the removal of fluids from the body increased, the external difference practically disappeared. Bonnie, the middle of the sisters, had a very faint freckle under her right eye, and Cindy, the youngest, had the same acne scar. Additionally, Cindy was built more like a runner, with slightly smaller breasts and well-developed calf muscles. Her more intimate signs were also a small mole on the lower back above the right buttock and another freckle to the left of the navel. Sam didn't have the opportunity to conduct such a detailed examination of Abby's or Bonnie's naked, or nearly naked, bodies. He had seen them in bikinis a couple of times at the family pool. The bikinis themselves were exactly the same, of course. but circumstances had prevented him from taking the time required to conduct a thorough analysis. And, of course, there was always the danger of receiving a couple of slaps in the face from girls for such overly meticulous research. But the sisters themselves seemed to think that they all looked exactly the same. At least that's what they thought. Maybe they thought everyone else was too stupid to understand it. Perhaps the people they usually met were really too inattentive to figure it out. Of course, all three were charming blondes with beautiful breasts, so the giggling and swaying of their seductive curves more than covered most of the men's intellectual capabilities, and probably usually quickly stopped any further questioning. So when Abby pretended to be Cindy on a dinner date with Sam one day and asked him why he was studying her face so closely, he didn't say that he immediately noticed the absence of a pimple scar as soon as they were exposed to bright enough light. He also didn't say that he noticed that the skin around her eyes was slightly puffy. Instead, he told her that he was looking at her because she was so beautiful that he enjoyed looking at every inch of her charming face and almost drowned in the deep blue pool of her bottomless eyes. She completely bought Sam's compliments and blushed almost crimson, which, by the way, never happened to Cindy either. Plus, there was something else that he, of course, did not point out to Abby. And when Bonnie, in turn pretending to be Cindy, asked Sam at dinner one day why he was looking at her hands so intently, he didn't told her it was because already noticed Bonnie's freckly under her and now took the opportunity to do some amateur palmistry to compare the major and minor lines on her arms with the lines on Cindy's arms to gain additional reference points for possible future use. It turned out that Bonnie had a sideline on her palm running diagonally to her left index finger, which the other two sisters did not have, so this simple research was worth it. Instead of this important information, Sam, of course, told her that his love for her was so strong that he could not look her in the eyes because he was afraid that he would cry, and then she would think that he was some kind of weakling. Instead, Bonnie began to cry herself. Another point he made sure to note, since neither Abby nor Cindy were that sentimental, and tried to kiss him deeply, although he dodged the kiss to hug her tightly and whisper to her ear that everything will be fine. In none of the cases of replacement did he try to kiss, or moreover, sleep with someone other than Abby or Bonnie, except perhaps to kiss him on the cheek, and they also did not pursue him. In both cases, he apologized, putting on a thoughtful, conflicted expression and saying that he needed to be alone with his feelings. They swallowed this nonsense. The sisters must have told his fiancée about their positive experiences with Sam, because when he saw the real Cindy after each such chaste switching, they had sex until they lost consciousness. Thinking back on it now, Sam realized that those were practically the only times she herself initiated something in bed instead of letting him do all the work as usual. Not that he was complaining. He liked to give her pleasure, and she liked to receive it. Just her never wasn't really active. Sam still couldn't understand what the point of this whole story was. Did they check him? Or were the twins trying to switch just for the sake of a backstage giggle session? According to him, it was a classic brotherly chocolate cupcake from his childhood, filled with purgeon and hot sauce. It would have been one thing if Cindy had openly asked him if he wanted to sleep with one or both of his sisters while she watched or participated, or even when she went out until they were done, but she never offered nothing, like him. He passed this double switching without any comments, not a word, mentioning that he had revealed the sisters' tricks. He didn't know what they were up to, but overall it seemed like a harmless game. While, after thinking about it some more, he frowned. The damn thing about this hot sauce cupcake was that his brothers pulled that prank on him twice. The second time, with remorseful expressions on their faces, they swore that they were sorry and wanted to make amends. Hereby, biscuit. Surprise! Ha ha ha! They lied, again, just like Charlie Brown with Lucy and the soccer ball one. All three brothers were then punished for this prank, but he was the only one who suffered all night, shuttling between the bed and the toilet. However, Sam learned a lesson from this. Now he always thought twice. He may have missed out on some opportunities along the way, like the triplets swap, but at least he didn't have to worry about having Will begin diarrhea or that he is about to throw up. "Yes, Mom, I understand," Cindy said, bringing Sam's attention back to her call. "Yes, I know there is a lot to do, and we only have 2 weeks. Don't worry, we've got everything covered. We'll be spending the next week moving everything out of the house and storing it, so we're ready to move into our new home after the honeymoon. Next week, everything will be ready for the wedding." Sam wanted to shout that maybe they should reconsider the wedding date, perhaps moving it to never, but he decided that everything had to go as usual so as not to look like a major asshole here, or the same trash as Cindy and her mommy. "Mom, don't worry about it. Both girls agreed. Everything will be fine. You'll see. Trust me. Fine. Yes. I love you too. Kiss Daddy. Bye." Sam heard a short beep as she pressed end and put the phone down. He then heard her walk into the master bedroom shower, turn on the water, and close the door. He waited a little longer until the sound of the water changed, indicating that someone has entered, took a shower, and finally got up. From sitting for a long time in a motionless position, his legs cramped. Sam, of course, didn't expect to have to sit for so long, but Cindy got home earlier than he expected, so he was stuck where he was sitting. She didn't see him because he was sitting behind a wall of boxes that held all his books. It was like a book fort, which was ironic considering that as a child, when he wanted peace and quiet, he shut himself out from the world in a reading fort. Now the boxes of books were his fortress, reliably protecting him at a key moment. Of course, the boxes were piled up in a corner of the living room, because books themselves weren't as central to Cindy's life as they were to his own, but he'd thought that was one of those compromises that marriage entailed. Perhaps it's time to reconsider this idea. Sam looked around the living room. Almost all of his things were already packed, with the exception of some clothes and what was on his desk. He was not tied to furniture except for his desk, and her favorite reclining chair, which for some reason Cindy hated and said would have to go into the basement of the new house because, in her opinion, it didn't go with anything else at all. Finally, the third thing he was going to take with him was the IKEA table that he bought for the TV and that he had had for many years. To these things, long familiar to Sam, he could add a mattress that he could simply throw on the floor and everything would be ready for his rest. But such decor clearly did not correspond to Cindy's ideas about the ideal interior of their new home. Perhaps it's time to rethink that too. For her part, Cindy had barely packed anything yet, while Sam was almost ready to leave. When he pointed this out to her, she brushed it off and said that all he had to do was come to church and say the magic words. The bride had to prepare and do everything herself. After what he heard today, Sam thought that it was unlikely that he would now be able to complete at least one of the tasks assigned to him. But Cindy's plan was that next week, when she was finally done with single life, the movers would come and pack up what was left in there and put it all in storage until she and Sam got back from their honeymoon and will not be ready to move to a new home. The house, which, of course, will still need to be rebuilt in accordance with her, Cindy's, taste. Until then, Sam will have to share an apartment with Abby's boyfriend, Tony, while Cindy will move in with her parents until everything is ready for the wedding. That's how it was her plan. But wait. What did the famous boxer Mike Tyson like to say? Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. Sam looked at his watch. There was still some time left before Abby and Bonnie arrived. According to the developed legend, they were both supposed to arrive there with takeout to talk about the wedding, after which Bonnie, but in reality Cindy, would leave home to spend the weekend with Bonnie's boyfriend, Bob, while Abby and Bonnie was having a sister sleepover here, which meant Sam wouldn't get any sex that night. In the second part of the plan, Cindy, disguised as Abby, will have to spend Saturday evening with Abby's boyfriend, so Bob and Tony would think that each of them spent one night with his girlfriend, while Sam had to make sure he was spent with Cindy. It was smart, but only until it became possible to tell identical triplets apart from each other, or if the sisters weren't too stupid to maintain reasonable operational security, which they, in fact, were. 2 weeks earlier, Sam met Bob and Tony for drinks while the girls were getting ready for their wedding. It's hard to say what exactly they were doing. Hairstyles, or flowers, or napkins, or something like that. The intended purpose of the meeting was for the guys to discuss Sam's bachelor party, which took them about 5 minutes to plan. Tony insisted that the bachelor party would consist of 3 key elements. 1, go to the club. 2, get really drunk there. And 3, don't end up behind bars. The simplicity of the plan was perfectly matched by its consistent integrity, which quickly and easily led to a general male consensus. Thus, the conversation moved on to other topics. The subsequent exchange of opinions inevitably led to daydreams about how great it would be if sisters agreed to switch places so that each of them could have sex with all 3 guys, preferably in the same room, so that they could all watch it. As the discussion continued, Sam quickly realized that neither Bob nor Tony could tell the girls apart. All their guesses were completely wrong. Apparently that's why the triplets got away with all this crap. Bob said that Bonnie supposedly had a unique way of pursing her lips when she was stressed. Tony shared his observation that Abby would stick out her tongue a little when she was thinking about something. Both of them were wrong. Sam knew that all 3 of them generally acted the same, although Bonnie and Abby individually showed subtle differences in their behavior a little more clearly than the other 2 twins. Thus, Sam understood that these signs were some kind of indicators, but to determine the difference between the girls, they could not be completely relied on. Obviously, having discovered their clues, Bob and Tony did not look for any other features. That's what the false sign meant. Conviction, at its worst. However, instead of confessing to the guys about his own awareness and miss his comparative advantage, Sam simply told Bob and Tony that all 3 sisters seemed the same to him. Bob and Tony then started talking about the upcoming weekend with overnight. Sam and that each of them will hold one night with their girlfriends, so they won't mind them being platonic with Sam the rest of the weekend. At that moment, Sam felt his stomach churn. When Cindy discussed her plans with her mother on the phone, it was absolutely clear to him that there would be a constant presence in their house. Only one sister, Abby. Bonnie had to spend the whole weekend with Bob because his parents were in town that coming weekend. Just in case, Sam asked when Bob's parents would arrive and found out that they had postponed their visit due to some problems with the renovation of the house. Here's Bonnie hanging out with Bob's parents. For Sam, all this made sense only in the only case if the girl who was absent from his house visited other houses for 2 nights in a row. And the only reason one of them would be snooping around other people's houses before Cindy's wedding, given the presence of 2 decoys in Sam's house, would be because that traveler would be Cindy herself. So the old triplet swap that Sam had been mulling over for the 2.5 years since Thanksgiving, his senior year, looked like it was finally going to happen. However, judging by the way everything was planned and arranged, only Cindy, Bob, and Tony were supposed to have fun. While Sam, Abby, and Bonnie would stay at home, busy seating the guests accept, and sex was out of the question, because Sam and Cindy couldn't make such an intimate noise while one of the sisters stayed overnight. Under such conditions, the exchange for Sam did not look like an exciting event at all. After the bachelor party and several days of agonizing over what to do next, Sam decided that he needed more information to solve the problem. After all, without evidence, everything he knew was based on guesswork rather than careful analysis. After several online purchases with packages delivered to his office, Sam was finally able to take action. He placed several voice recorders around the house, hidden in the chaos of packing for the move. One in each of the 2 bedrooms, one in the living room, another in the dining room, and finally the last device in the kitchen. He only missed the partially finished basement, where he had his personal office. None of the girls ever went there. The great thing about these recording devices was that they were connected to Wi-Fi. This way, Sam could either stream the recording live to his computer or phone, or download the conversations online. He knew he was on shaky legal ground, since in their state, the consent of the other party was required for the resulting recording to be legal, but here he was simply eavesdropping on other people's conversations. True, Sam justified his actions by saying that he did it for himself, in order to collect intelligence, and not to make the recording public in court. After all, he won't have to divorce the bitch. However, he went to the trouble of purchasing a prepaid iPhone to coordinate the launch of recording devices. As Sam finished installing the last recorder, he stood upright and suddenly froze in shock, feeling a chill in his gut as a thought came to mind. Suddenly, the fact that Cindy had stopped taking birth control a few weeks ago seemed even more ominous to him. According to her, she wanted to remove this poison from her body before the wedding so that they could immediately start their family. However, according to Sam's calculations, she would begin her period the night before the wedding, which would then continue throughout the honeymoon. When he asked his fiancée about it, Cindy burst into tears and said that she couldn't control the timing of this miracle of female anatomy, but now Sam doubted it. She promised to make amends in other ways, including copious amounts of pre-wedding sex, and he reluctantly relented. Now he was starting to get upset again, especially after he realized that Cindy's most fertile period would come when she was standing, or more accurately, in this case, lying on her lying ass, with her legs up in the air, in front of Abby's boyfriends and Bonnie. At the same time, from conversations with the guys, Sam knew that neither Bob nor Tony used condoms with their girlfriends. A couple of days after he installed the bugs, Sam hit the bull's eye. One evening, when he had to work late, all three sisters gathered at his house. They treated themselves to wine and chatted casually, and Cindy warmly thanked them for the wedding gift. Although the girls were happy to help Cindy satisfy her sexual curiosity, Abby and Bonnie still wanted to know why they couldn't also switch places so they could share the pleasures equally. Cindy told them that they could easily swap each other with Bob and Tony, but to swap with Sam would mean that he was cheating on her, which she never wouldn't allow it. On the other hand, Cindy did not consider what she herself did to be treason. For her, it was just a game, a little wild prank to say goodbye to her inner wild and eccentric child before finally settling down like an adult, so everything was in order here. In any case, she would never feel anything but great love for Sam, so her conscience was clear here too. Then either Abby or Bonnie asked the question that had been tormenting Sam himself lately. If you love Sam so much, why are you going to sleep with our guys without birth control? In response, Cindy's voice became low and hoarse, with some kind of animal passion. Girls, just the thought that I could accidentally get knocked up from unprotected sex with another guy makes me so hot and humid. Since I decided to do this, I have had to satisfy myself 3 times a day for the past 2 months. And this even after we had passionate sex with Sam, she blurted out excitedly. Look, this will be easy to pull off. On Friday evening and Saturday until noon, Bob will pump into me everything that he has accumulated over the week, and then all Saturday, from lunch until Sunday morning, Tony will do the same. Almost choking in anticipation of entertainment, Cindy continued, When I get back here on Sunday morning, we'll send Sam out to get bagels and coffee, and by the time he gets to the store and back, you'll take off your pajamas so I can shower and put them on. Then I say goodbye to you, after which Sam will spend the whole day having sex with me without a condom. As we agreed, he won't have any sex for 2 days while you, Abby, are here, so he'll probably be completely on edge and ready to jump on me as soon as I spread my legs for him. Everything is very simple, Cindy laughed. Bonnie then said, Okay then, let it be your way. But Bobby must never find out about this, and I'm sure Abby doesn't want Tony to know either, especially if one of them gets you pregnant. If this happens, then I have never heard of it, and of course I never agreed to anything like that. And if I marry Bobby, don't even try to make him pay for your child. This is entirely your problem, Abby added quietly. Tony must never find out, do you hear? If he even thinks that I deceived him, I don't even want to think about it. You know what his character is. I already told you about how he caught that guy hitting on his then-girlfriend when they were still in high school, and he almost sent them both to the hospital. Don't worry, Cindy said soothingly. Nobody will ever know, and if I get pregnant from one of the guys, Sam will raise the child. He wouldn't even think that it wasn't from him. He trusts me too much and is a true gentleman to doubt anything. Cindy was silent for a second, and then giggled frivolously. Oh, and the thought of him raising a child that isn't even his because he has no idea makes me even more excited. So you two should leave now, because I can't wait to have some fun. They left and she did what she wanted with loud moans. All this remained on the audio recording. This was the closest explanation, largely coinciding with what he himself thought about why Cindy did it. While Cindy was showering and Abby and Bonnie had not yet arrived, Sam left the house and got into his car, which he parked at the end of the street and around the corner, just in case. Now that he knew everything would go as Cindy planned, he needed to finalize his own plans. In principle, they were simple and could withstand a punch to the face, literally or figuratively. First of all, the wedding was definitely canceled. The concept of loyalty was a clear on-off switch for Sam. It didn't matter that he and Cindy hadn't exchanged vows yet. They had been together for almost 3 years and engaged for about 8 months. If they can't be an exclusive couple now, what hope can there be later? What angered him the most was the deception and lack of respect. Add to that the fact that Cindy was planning to play roulette on whether or not she'd get pregnant 2 weeks before their wedding, and he simply didn't trust her anymore. Just like her family. Sam's family, on the other hand, supported him, even his brothers, who mellowed over time. When he thought through his plan of action, he called them all to warn them that there was a high probability that the wedding would not take place, and that his family would try to return all the money they spent on its preparations. Luckily, they only had to cancel their tuxedo rentals and hotel reservations, although at some cost, due to the approaching wedding date. Apart from Sam's immediate family, most of the guests were Cindy's relatives, and her father paid for almost everything else. Sam's 2 older brothers volunteered to beat up Bob and Tony. Sam knew that neither of the boys had any idea what their girlfriends were up to, so he turned down his brother's offer. The youngest of his 3 older brothers persuaded him to wait until the wedding day so that he could add that special thermonuclear sauce to everything that the guests were going to eat at the banquet. Sam also rejected this rather tempting offer. He assured them that he would handle everything on his own. Second, what needed to be done was ensure the safety of his personal property. Sam planned to move his things out of the house at the first possible opportunity. Basically, he didn't have that much stuff, but everything he had, he would need when he had to start his life again. He drove to a temporary storage warehouse and rented a storage unit. He then called a cheap moving company recommended to him by a friend. The entire office was just a couple of Eastern Europeans, with unclear immigration status and a shabby truck. They would do a great job with what he needed. He scheduled their visit for Saturday morning, before the real Cindy was supposed to be home. Third item on the to-do list was withdrawing money from a joint household account. Until now, this was their only common property. There was about $5,000 in the joint account. Sam transferred $4,000 online to his personal account, considering it his severance pay from his relationship with Cindy. $1,000 for each year of their life together, and another $1,000 as punitive damages for the moral damage caused to him. There was no way Cindy would check the balance anytime soon. She had her own account, which she used for personal expenses, including possibly sex with other people. The joint household account was intended only to pay rent and utilities, and the lease on the house was ending in a week. After transferring the money, he turned off his phone so he could think calmly. The fourth task was revenge. It was Cindy who planned to cheat, so she had to suffer the punishment she deserved. While he was driving around the city, avoiding returning home, he came up with a plan that he thought would work. Sam looked at his watch and was surprised to see that he had been gone for almost 3 hours. It was already 8 in the evening when he turned his phone back on. There were several text and voice messages from Cindy asking when he would be home so they could order takeout and he could see her sisters before Bonnie had to go back to Bob's to see his parents. Sam had no intention of answering the messages. instead driving to Bob's house. It wasn't far. There, a few houses down from Bob's house, Tony's car was parked. Bonnie must have driven her there. Abby's car, according to the audio recording Sam intercepted, was in the shop, so Cindy had to drive Tony's car so that he wouldn't ask awkward questions about where it was when she arrived at his house on Saturday, posing as Abby. Sam parked quietly a few dozen meters down the street, got out of his car, and took several pictures of Tony's car, choosing the right angle so that his location could be easily determined. Fortunately, it was still light enough outside for everything to be clearly visible. Sam then headed home. He drove past his house, noticing Cindy and Bonnie's cars parked there, and parked in front of the house next door, in a spot that was not visible from his house. Getting out of the car, Sam came closer and took a photo of Bonnie's car, which was standing next to Cindy's car. He then returned to his car and briefly listened to the recordings made in the house over the past 3 hours. He then turned into the driveway. He was curious how the twins would act out this scene. In real life, Cindy would have scolded him for being late and not answering her calls and texts. Now he was in no mood to tolerate such behavior from one of her clones. And besides, Sam was wondering which of the two would pretend to be Cindy. From the recordings he listened to in the car, he could never figure it out. So he walked through the door and heard whispering that suddenly stopped. "Hi, darling. You missed Bonnie." "She had to leave," said the girl, who came up and kissed him chastely on the lips. She had a faint freckle under her right eye and looked a little nervous. Well, the picture became clearer for Sam. The real Bonnie played the role of Cindy today. Sam kept his face neutral. Abby, who was watching them both, also looked a little worried. Sam decided to increase the tension, reasoning that it would be more likely to cause them to make a mistake. He looked at them both intently, carefully peering into the girls' faces and looking from one to the other, while maintaining a calm expression on his face. "Is something wrong, girls?" He asked the question with Olympic calm. Cindy laughed nervously. "Everything is okay, dear. We were just worried because you weren't answering your calls. Where have you been?" "Somewhere," he said, taking a container of Chinese food from the table. He was hungry and began to devour food while the girls looked at him and then at each other. Would you like me to heat this up for you, honey?" Cindy asked cautiously. "No," he answered briefly. She called him cute. That must be what she called Bob, although Sam didn't seem to notice it before. Cindy always called him baby. They must not have rehearsed that much and carefully. It was a very useful observation. Silence reigned in the kitchen. Frozen in place, the girls simply looked at Sam, while he silently actively worked with his jaws. He looked at them both, still showing no emotion. "Don't you two need to do some wedding shit?" he asked, raising an eyebrow and clear irritation in his voice. Both twins flinched. They clearly did not expect any negative attitude from him, and, generally speaking, he was usually in a cheerful mood around them. But the deliberate hostility was important to what Sam had in mind with his plan. Faced with such an unexpected attitude, both girls quickly jumped up and disappeared into the master bedroom, slamming the door behind them. They were in such a hurry that they forgot about Cindy's phone, which remained lying on the kitchen table behind Sam. He took it, switched the ringer to vibration only, and put the phone in his pocket. The only important detail he caught on the recordings he managed to listen to was that Cindy took Abby and Bonnie's phones, hiding the one she didn't need in her purse. This meant that Cindy's phone remained in the house. Now, the disposition has changed. Sam's control of the phone meant that Cindy would not receive any messages from her two accomplices. There was no landline telephone in their house. If Cindy's phone had not been left in the kitchen due to the sisters' oversight, Sam assumed that he would have had to somehow distract their attention in order to find it and hide it. Well, such a happy coincidence of circumstances would greatly simplify the situation and allow him to pay off the deceivers in full. So the bets were placed, the trump cards were in hand. Now it was time to start the game. Your game. After finishing his meal, Sam grabbed a beer and went down to his office in the basement, making sure to leave a mess in the kitchen. This was also not in his habits, since he was known to be the most careful of all three boyfriends. Descending the stairs, he slammed the door behind him and was pleased to hear the bedroom door open above him and the sound of footsteps heading towards the kitchen. Sam turned on the live broadcast of the conversation from there. Even without recording, it was clear that one of the twins was washing the dishes. "Is there something wrong? Have you ever seen him so gloomy?" The voice of one of them was heard. "No, they probably had a fight." "Damn it. Why didn't she warn us?" "Because, as always, she doesn't think about anyone but herself." Another snorted. "We should call her. I know she said not to do it, but it really could get out of control." Where's the phone?" "How do I know? Wasn't it with you last time?" "I don't remember. No, wait. I think Cindy has it." "And where did she put it?" "Oh, shit. Do you think she put it in her purse with the others?" "Maybe." "Well, what should we do now?" There was a clearly nervous tone in the voice. "No matter what, we have to make him happy tonight, at least until we can talk to her tomorrow." "It's easy for you to say. Today I am Cindy." There was laughter. "And I thought that you wanted to change." "I have changed my mind. I've thought about this a lot. I don't need any other guy but Bobby. I'll die if he cheats on me. And I can't understand how what Cindy is doing is different from this." It now became clear that it was Bonnie's voice. "Actually, we both used to change with Cindy before meeting Sam, and then you didn't seem to have any problems with it," Abby reminded. "That was a different matter. We were just checking him out, and nothing happened. He was a real gentleman." "Well, then just satisfy this gentleman tonight if you have to," Abby suggested. "It won't count. Tell him you have thrush or something, but you still want to please him. You'll see. He'll agree. Guys are generally selfish." "Maybe I should go check on him down there?" Bonnie asked hesitantly. "If I were you, I'd leave him alone for now." Then the shuffling footsteps returned to the master bedroom, and her door closed again. Sam promptly switched, and was now listening to a live audio recording of what Abby and Bonnie were talking about in the bedroom. I can't do this." It sounded like Bonnie was about to have a nervous breakdown. "Well, you'll have to, sis, if he gets out of control. As for me, I'm not going to do anything sexual with him. Tony will kill me if he finds out. So you have to take responsibility for yourself, for the sake of the whole team." "I've never lied to Bobby before," Bonnie repeated in a depressed voice. "It's too late, honey. You already lied to Bobby when you signed up for this. And you've been lying to Sam from the moment he walked through the door." Abby stated the obvious. Of course, her words did not cheer up her sister at all. The rest of their conversation consisted of one sobbing and the other consoling. And as time passed, the whimpers began to sound more and more plaintive, which made the situation easier. In the end, Sam turned off the sound and spent the next few hours tidying up his workspace and disassembling the table so that it would be easier for the movers to remove it. It was already 23 saks in the evening when he went up to the master bedroom and entered it without knocking. The girls sat side by side on the bed and talked quietly. At this point, Sam didn't care what they were talking about. His appearance took them both by surprise and frightened them both. He looked at his sisters with an indifferent look. "Bonnie." Cindy's eyes were puffy from crying. Not knowing what to expect from him, Abby looked at him with poorly concealed anxiety. "I'm going to take a shower and then go to bed," he announced. "Okay," Abby said. "We'll move into the living room so that our conversations don't disturb your sleep." "If this is what you want, then it's better to just save us all a lot of time and effort and go back to your parents. Then no one will have to waste time and money planning a wedding. We can just stop all this," Sam said coolly. "What-oh-oh?" Abby screamed in shock. Worried, Bonnie Cindy looked unable to say anything at all. "If my fiancé isn't in my bed in 5 minutes, ready to give me some love right now, because I won't be having my own fucking honeymoon in a couple of weeks because that's when she's scheduled to get her period. Well, then there's no point in either of you staying in the house when I get out of the shower, and in general in my life," Sam said harshly. "You're an asshole!" Abby attacked him. "You can't talk to her like that. Just look at her." Sam ignored Abby's emotions and pressed Bonnie, Cindy, who was now bursting into tears. "You have to choose, Cindy. Me or your family. If it's me, then be in bed when I get out of the shower. If you choose your family, you can both leave immediately. I'll get my things out of the house by tomorrow morning while you're gone," he announced, heading into the master bathroom without further ado. While brushing his teeth in front of the sink mirror, he heard whispers on the other side of the door. So good. None of them have run out the front door yet. He undressed and got into the shower. As the hot water poured over him, he heard the creaky bathroom door slowly begin to open. This was getting quite interesting. He assumed the fight would start in the bedroom, with at least some screaming and yelling about what an insensitive ass he was. He didn't really expect anything more than ruining Cindy's weekend before dumping her. According to his original plan, both sisters, unable to withstand his pressure, were to run away from the house. After which, under some pretext, they would yank Cindy out of Bob's bed and send her back to him to try to save the upcoming wedding. Then Sam would find stained underwear in her purse, and that would be Cindy's game over. But now he realized that another scenario could play out, one that he had not even counted on. Now, as he was rinsing off the soap and shampoo, he heard the shower door open behind him. Turning around and brushing the moisture from his eyelashes with his palm, he saw a gorgeous, naked, and nervous blonde with amazing breasts. The real surprise for him was that this naked and clearly nervous blonde with magnificent breasts did not have a freckle under her right eye. It was Abby, not Bonnie. Bonnie must have remained there, cowering in sobs and snot, and thus was thrown out of the ring. Slowly, Abby moved closer and Sam simply grabbed her and pulled her towards him for a deep, passionate kiss. She tensed at first, which was funny considering Abby had walked into the shower naked, but then he felt her resistance weaken and she clung to his body. When she started to kiss him back, he grabbed her by the hair, spun her around, and pressed her face against the wall of the shower stall. Her hands instinctively flew up, and her elbows rested on the plastic surface so as not to hit the wall. Sam immediately noticed a small mole on her right shoulder blade that Cindy didn't have. And of course, there was no noticeable mole on this naked beauty's right buttock. Like the real Cindy. He leaned towards her and whispered in her ear, "You think you can play these fucking mind games with me, huh? You wiggle your perfect little ass at me, turn me on, and then want me to just do nothing while you chat with your sisters? Do you think this doesn't upset me? Come on, tell me, did you want to marry a man or a weakling?" She didn't say anything, just whimpered. "Answer, you little brat," he hissed, grabbing a handful of her long hair and forcefully pulling it down. "For a man," she blurted out quickly. "You are mine. You understand?" He pulled her hair again. She nodded and moaned. "I don't hear any nods. Say it out loud." "Yes," she moaned in a low, chesty voice. "I'm yours. All yours. You'll never have sex with anyone again, will you?" "I won't." Interesting. Very interesting. He didn't know that Abby enjoyed being dominated by an alpha male. "If I want us to have intimacy in front of your sisters, you will allow me, won't you?" "Oh, God, yes. Do it in front of my sisters. Let them look at this." "Oh, you're my good little bitch." He opened the shower door, took a towel from the hook, and dried himself off, watching her. He then began to dry Abby while pulling her towards him for more kisses. At some point, Abby pulled herself together a little, broke the kiss, pushed him out of the shower, and finished drying herself off. She stepped out of the shower, hung up the towel, and took his hand. Then the blonde, hot after a shower and sex, led him to the bed. She must have figured that Tony would never find out about anything, so she could take that risk. She threw back the blanket, lay on her back, and spread her legs without saying a word to him. Before falling on her, Sam went and turned off the light. It was important that what happened next happened in the dark. "I memorized your body, bitch. While I have sex with you tonight, I want you to imagine me doing it with your sisters," Sam rumbled in a low, slightly growling voice as he loomed over her. "Ooh, oh my God," Abby moaned in a trembling voice, closing her eyes. He lay on top of her and started kissing her face and body again. Sam paused long enough to give her hickeys on her right thigh and the right side of her stomach. When they finished, Abby sat up and looked at Sam in the darkness, gently stroking his face. "I never told you enough how special you are, my sweetie." Here we go again. Sweet. He simply pulled her lying face in for a kiss. "When I'm with you, I realize that I am the happiest person on earth," he said, pausing briefly to choose his words carefully. They kissed deeply and wetly again. When they broke the kiss, she asked, "Would you like a drink?" "As usual," he replied, knowing that Abby most likely had not been informed of what he usually liked. He literally felt her indecision with his skin. "Double portion of Lafroig, carefully. You remember, right?" "Oh, yes, exactly," Abby responded with false confidence, half with notes of relief in her voice. He really could use a wet drink right now, but he didn't remember Abby being a big drinker. Could she even think about slipping something into his glass to keep him under her control for the rest of the night? He'll have to tread carefully here. His current twin lover slipped out of bed and disappeared behind the door, closing it behind her. He heard Abby's footsteps approaching the guest bedroom, the sound of the door opening, furious whispering, and then 2 pairs of feet heading towards the drinks bar in the living room, where they were apparently trying to figure out what was where and how exactly to spell Lafroig. Until that moment, he had no idea how noisy it was in his house. Absolutely everything could be heard. He and Cindy should have tried to reduce the rent for such thin walls when they moved into this place. Well, now it was too late. Again there was a whisper behind the door, then silence. The door slowly opened, and a naked blonde walked into the dark room with 2 glasses in her hands. The dim light pouring from the corridor illuminated an almost perfect silhouette, destined to provoke the commission of one of the deadly sins. She closed the door, pushing it with her tight ass. The old door creaked with the happiness of such contact, and carefully approached the bed. As she came closer, he quickly stood up, took both glasses from her hands, placed them on the bedside table, and pulled the beauty towards him for a deep kiss. Sam tasted the vodka on her lips and tongue and felt her trembling. This was not the warm skin of the girl who had left the room a minute ago. They must have switched places again. Abby probably told Bonnie that now that he had just had sex, he would be satisfied and relaxed. This miscalculation of theirs, on the contrary, made him excited again. Feeling this, she tensed, broke the kiss, and pushed him away. "Would you like another drink, honey?" she suggested with nervous haste. "Cute." So. That's right. The sisters switched places again. Bonnie tried to sound calm, but there was tension in her voice. "You know what? I changed my mind about what I want to drink," Sam snapped. He spun her around, pushed her back onto the bed, and began caressing and kissing her whole body. At the same time, he made sure to give the middle sister more hickeys on her left thigh and left side of her stomach. Having finished with caresses, they had sex. Bonnie then hugged him tightly, and they both drifted off to sleep. The next morning, Sam woke up, and in the morning light breaking through the curtains, he saw a freckle under the girl's right eye. Sam had sex with her again. "Is the heating on?" she suddenly asked between deep breaths, turning her head on the pillow. "I don't know. What, are you cold?" Bonnie nodded, jumped off the bed, and quickly ran out the door naked, carefully closing it behind her. He heard the hurried patter of bar feet along the corridor, after which the door of the guest room creaked open. Again the girl's whisper was heard, which became louder, although they tried to be quiet, and then footsteps returning back to the master bedroom. The beautiful, naked, blonde goddess, who was now entering the room, did not have a freckle under her right eye, so it was clear as this sunny morning that Abby had reappeared in the bedroom, starting her morning shift. The hickeys given to her at night were clearly visible in the morning light. Fortunately, None of the girls have yet paid attention to them. "You're cold," he told her as she climbed into bed. Unlike Bonnie, Abby had a big smile on her face. "True, but you can keep me warm," she purred playfully. And he did just that, first in bed and then in the shower. Finally, they finished having sex, got dressed, and went to the kitchen. Bonnie, pretending to be Abby, was already sitting there, quietly drinking coffee, looking rather sullen. Abby, for her part, continued to pretend to be Cindy, chatting happily incessantly while cooking scrambled eggs. The high spirits were ruined by a knock on the door. Sam went out to open it. It turned out that the movers had arrived. He pointed out to them the boxes he wanted to take, and at the same time showed them what needed to be taken from the basement. The girls looked at each other with concern. "Honey, what's going on?" "Abby," Cindy asked. "You're under so much stress with the move and the wedding and everything else that I just want to make your life easier," Sam replied kindly. "That's why I'll ask the guys to move my things first. You said they were bothering you, and I want to do everything in my power to help my fiancé." Abby thought about his words and then smiled and leaned in for a kiss. "Thank you, darling. You are so caring." Bonnie, in turn, looked at what was happening doubtfully, but said nothing. Immediately after breakfast, Cindy ushered Sam out of the kitchen while she cleaned up the place. After that, he and Bonnie retired to the guest bedroom. Sam went out into the yard and dialed Tony's number. "What's up, bro?" Tony asked in a sleepy voice, yawning. "Bad news, man," Sam replied. "What?" Tony immediately became alert, instantly shaking off his drowsiness. "I think Abby might be cheating on you." "What? This can't be true," he blurted out. "But I'm not sure about this. Over the past couple of days, I have heard snatches of phrases from girls that at that moment did not make any sense. But guess what? Last night I saw your car parked outside Bob's house, and Bonnie's car parked here at mine." "Damn," Tony swore and fell silent for a few seconds. Then his voice was heard on the phone again. "No disrespect, but are you sure about this? I took photographs. Listen, I didn't want to believe it myself, and I didn't want to say anything until I was sure, but now I'm running out of explanations. Think about it. From last night until this morning, I had the same two sisters here. None of them left the house. Maybe Bob really does have Bonnie, and she's using your car for some reason and will come here in a couple of hours. But I do not think so." Sam continued to sow seeds of doubt and escalate, while Tony hung on his every word. "The two girls who are here now are talking as if they don't think that anyone else will come today. Until now, I have not had the opportunity to free myself to call you. Now I took a moment and immediately dialed your number. I'll send pictures of the cars right after I switch off. Look at the metadata for yourself and see where and when I made it. I don't want to get involved in all this, but if I were you, man, I'd like to know what's going on." "Damn it!" Tony swore again. "I understand you, bro. I'm really sorry. This bitch..." Tony clearly began to boil. "Look, you can tell them apart, right?" Sam reminded. "If Bob really has Abby now, then after she comes to you, I would advise you to take a good look at her to see if anything seems strange. And by the way, why don't you check her purse for dirty laundry? I think this will tell you a lot." "Uh-huh. Thanks, dude. I appreciate it." The grim determination in Tony's voice sounded quite intimidating even from 5 miles away. They hung up and Sam sat down on the porch to read for a while. From what he could tell as they walked through the rooms, Abby, Cindy, and Bonnie were indeed planning the wedding. Looks like they were sorting out the liquor order now. Sam wondered how much of the wedding expenses were non-refundable, probably quite big. Well, someone's out of luck. Around noon, Sam received a call from an unfamiliar number. The female voice on the other end of the line was crying and sounding uncertain. "Sam, this is Bonnie. Can I please speak to one of my sisters?" "Of course," he answered and went into the house to find them. He handed the phone to Abby and returned to the porch. She seemed to still be playing the role of Cindy. A minute later, the real Bonnie, now playing Abby, came out onto the porch with Abby, who was still posing as Cindy. God, this was all really confusing. He understood how easy it was to deceive guys in such situations if they did not pay attention to important details, as he did. "We need to go to the hospital." "Bonnie had an accident," Abby Cindy said, handing the phone back to him. "My God, this is serious?" Sam asked, trying his best to look worried and not laugh. "She hurt herself a little, but she'll be fine," Abby Cindy quickly assured. "We'll be back soon." "Let me take you," Sam suggested. "No! No!" they shouted, as if on cue, before realizing how panicked their voices sounded. Immediately, both conspirators looked at each other, and then simultaneously became embarrassed and blushed. "It's okay," Abby Cindy hastily added, trying to quickly move past the awkward moment. "You know what a fool Bonnie is," she said without blinking an eye, withstanding the destroying look that the real Bonnie standing next to her threw at her. "I know you still have a lot to do, so stay here. She'll be fine." Sam thought about arguing about it, but it wasn't much fun anymore, so he let them drive away, protesting a little just for show. As soon as they were out of the driveway and their car was speeding down the street, Sam called Bob. "Hey, Bob, what's going on? Cindy just said that Bonnie had some kind of accident, but they didn't tell me anything specific." "What?" "Bonnie left me just half an hour ago. She said she was coming to your house. No one has come here all morning." "How? Look, I don't know what's going on, but I saw Tony's car in front of your house last night. Abby must have used it because her own car is in the shop." "Bullshit. Wait a minute. Maybe she lent it to Bonnie?" "I don't think so. Bonnie's car was here and Tony's car was there. I was thinking maybe the girls were up to something. You might not like it, but I think they might have replaced each other in front of us. I called Tony this morning and told him the same thing." "What a bastard. If he's the one who hurt Bonnie, I'll kill him," Bob shouted angrily. "Wait, Bob, how do you know which one you had at home? I have no idea what two I had here." There was silence on the line. "Damn," Bob finally said, discouraged. "I know. I'm going to go to the hospital and try to figure out what the fuck is going on. If they really switched places and Cindy was involved, I'll be very angry." "I understand," Bob said. Sam couldn't help but dig the knife in deeper. "I mean, it would be one thing if we all agreed to this, but what I don't like is lying. Now it seems to me that someone is being deceived here. I mean, I had sex all night long with a girl I thought was Cindy. She got up in the middle of the night and later returned with a drink. Maybe they changed on me too. Perhaps, along with Cindy, I also slept with Bonnie. If I did, I didn't know for sure. In short, I'm sorry, man. Sorry if anything happens." When Bob answered after a very long pause, Sam could clearly hear the ice in his voice before he passed out. "See you at the hospital." Sam smiled and drank another cup of coffee, giving an angry Bob the time he needed to get to the hospital. Setting the coffee mug in the sink, Sam reached into several file folders that he had deliberately not started packing just yet, pulling out various documents. He also collected listening devices throughout the house and threw them into the glove compartment of the car. There was no longer any need for them. Finally, he quickly gathered the remaining clothes and loaded them into his car as well. While heading to the emergency room, he saw two male police officers outside the hospital, one of whom was talking something with a big smile on his face. Sam paused nearby so they couldn't see him and listened to the conversation. "As I drive up, I see this hot, naked blonde lying on her back on the sidewalk, legs spread wide and all her charms on display, as if she's at the gynecologist. God, it's still hard for me to even think about it." Well, don't delay. What happened next?" The second cop interrupted him in impatient excitement. "In short, I see that she is unconscious and all spread out. Just then the ambulance arrived, so I had to act like a pro and start interviewing witnesses." The first policeman chuckled and shook his head. "It looks like her boyfriend thought she was cheating on him, forced her to undress to look for hickeys, and when he found her, he whipped her ass with a belt. So much so that she ran out the door, naked as she was. It ended up that when she rushed away from him across the road, she somersaulted over the hood of a passing car. In general, the beauty hit her head on the ground." "Did you take that guy?" asked another policeman. "No, he ran away." "God, but that girl was gorgeous. That is, until the doctors brought her to her senses and sat her upright. As soon as she came to, she immediately started vomiting, just like in The Exorcist. At this point, Sam stopped eavesdropping and proceeded to the hospital. After the standard rude greeting at the reception desk, he was directed to the reception department. As I understand it, my fiancée has just been admitted. I want to make sure you have all of her insurance information. I have her healthcare power of attorney and a Hype authorization form. Those were the magic words for the receptionist, who chattered happily, confirming that Cynthia Springer had been admitted to the hospital with a skull injury and a concussion, but otherwise only bruises and scrapes. This, she said, was very lucky because Cindy was hit by a car. But they are doing all sorts of tests to make sure she is not in danger. Most likely, they will leave the girl under observation overnight, but perhaps she will be discharged tomorrow. This talkative employee happily told Sam the number of Cindy's emergency room and also gave him a visitor's pass. Sam walked to the victim's room like a robot without experiencing any emotions, just taking it step by step. Entering the room and approaching the bed, he saw Cindy's parents and sisters gathered around her, and they all looked deeply worried. When they saw Sam's face enter, everyone's concern grew into real panic. "My only question, Cindy," Sam said, before anyone could react, "was whether Tony had sex with you before he hit you." Cindy's face contorted, and she immediately burst into tears. The rest of the company looked rather depressed. "In case you haven't realized yet, the wedding is canceled," he added. The loud cry instantly turned into a cry of despair. Cindy's father stood up and hurried towards her. "Sam, let's talk for a couple of minutes." He turned his head to Sam, while trying to calm his daughter down. Sam looked at him impassively. Until now, he liked this man, but not enough to put up with all this crap. Sam couldn't read anything but worry on his once-future father-in-law's face, but now he was sure that the last thing he wanted was for anyone from this family of idiots to talk to him. "I hope you know that your wife and her sister also switched places between you and your brother-in-law." Sam presented another trump card from his hand. The man's face showed shock. Whether it was the shock that someone had discovered his secret shame, or whether he himself was just now learning about it for the first time, Sam couldn't figure it out. However, he didn't care. "I heard your daughter talking about this on the phone with your wife," Sam said. Sam's future ex-father-in-law's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Not a sound came out of him. As if to compensate for this, the decibels of Cindy's blood-curdling screams began to go through the roof. "Maybe you didn't know. Of course, it's your own business, but maybe you should consider getting a DNA test done on your daughters," Sam said, making sarcastic air quotes. Hearing these words, his failed future mother-in-law jumped up and then, as if struck by the lightning of Zeus, lost consciousness, collapsing next to Cindy's bed and hitting her head on the floor. It didn't sound good, but at least if it was another concussion, she was in the right place. As Bonnie rushed to her mother's aid, Abby spat in Sam's face. "Oh, you bastard! You knew what was going on all along, didn't you?" Sam just smiled. "If it makes you feel any better, Abby, you and Bonnie are having sex. Much better than your sister, and besides, Abby, you're good at sex much better, Bonnie. Bye, everyone. See you later." Sam was just walking out the door when Bob headed inside with a very gloomy face. "You might want to check your girlfriend for hickeys and ask her where she got them," Sam told him as he walked away, muffled, albeit desperate, cries from outside the emergency room echoing in his ears as he entered, to the lobby. Reaching the front door, Sam heard the loud voice over the PA system. "The security service is being called by an ambulance, urgently! Security at the emergency room, urgently!" 3 months later, sitting in bed and sipping scotch, Sam looked at the gorgeous blonde with amazing breasts and a beautiful round ass, who lay supine next to him, snoring, and arms spread wide. The inside of her thighs and her plump, protruding breasts were covered with numerous hickeys. A small mole on her right shoulder blade was barely visible. The tight hemispheres of her ass were red from the many handprints he left there because she was a lying bitch from a family of lying bitches. A crude collar was placed around her neck, but since she was a good little bitch, he did not chain her to the wall. When he left the hospital, he had no intention of ever seeing any of them again, let alone sleeping with one of the twins. But one day Abby followed him home from work. When he protested, she told him that she had promised him that night in the house that she belonged to him and no one else. And she seriously, I meant it. Besides, Tony kicked her out of the house anyway. He never hit her, although he said he really wanted to, but avoiding prosecution for whipping Cindy meant, on the other hand, letting Abby get away. Bobby, when he went to the hospital that day, also never hit Bonnie, but he screamed at her so loudly and called her such dirty epithets that she had to be sedated, and he was escorted out by security. This was also the end of their relationship. Cindy was now at home with her mother and Bonnie, still a little woozy from her concussion and not coping well with household chores. Their house now had a lot of space. Cindy's father moved out. It seems that he thought about Sam's last words for a long time and still insisted on conducting a DNA test on his daughters. It wasn't too surprising that all of them turned out to be not his daughters. In fact, they were his nieces, or whatever it's called when your sister-in-law's husband sleeps with your wife, and you have to pay to raise his offspring. There is probably a special word for this. Aunt Sally also lived with the girls. Uncle Rob also seemed unaware that his wife and sister-in-law had swapped each other with his brother-in-law, leaving him with 3 grown daughters he never knew he had. He also had his own 3 children DNA tested. Surprise! Only one of them actually turned out to be his own. The other 2 had other fathers who disappeared over the horizon a long time ago. The whole story even made the news when Uncle Rob burned his house to the ground out of grief and was arrested. When Abby found out that her father was actually her uncle, or whatever his name was, and that her uncle was actually her father, she called her mother, Aunt Sally, and Cindy bastards who ruined everyone's lives. Apparently she couldn't stay with them anymore, so she went straight to Sam because he was a bastard who ruined her life by making Abby fall in love with him, even though she hated him with the same passion. At first, Sam wasn't going to let her into the apartment. He thought Abby was crazy and didn't want her anywhere near his food or anything he might drink, and especially to his body while he was sleeping and vulnerable. However, he had not had sex for a long time, and satisfying himself alone was becoming boring and sad, so after some negotiations, Sam and Abby came to a mutually beneficial agreement. He allowed her to stay for a few days, but insisted that she be tied to the bed and blindfolded. In truth, he wasn't into rough sex at all, except for the occasional role-playing game, but it turned out that Abby really enjoyed it. She obeyed without any complaints. To add to the humiliation, Sam told her that she had to rent her own apartment and get a job, and that she could only stay overnight if she was tied up or in chains. And she agreed. It's funny, but the worse he treated her, the more excited she felt. A strange addiction indeed. But Sam was a gentleman who believed in giving a woman what she wants. So why not make Abby happy by putting his hands to good use not only on himself, but also on the seductive charms of a gorgeous beauty, and at the same time, keep your food and drink safe? It was a win-win. Of course, he would never marry Abby, but Sam decided there were worse ways in life to spend his nights dealing with the stress of a failed relationship. Maybe someday he will learn to trust again, up to certain limits. However, just in case, he made Abby get a tattoo right under her collarbone, so that he would no longer have to figure out who was who. Of course, it was scarlet letter A. She thought it meant Abby. Well, what can you do? Abby really was such a blonde. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.